Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's July 27th, 2025, Sunday morning, a nice Sunday morning. Today, I wanted to talk about forfeiting World War II, and we'll use the use case of Japan. Should the United States forfeit its war regarding Japan? Uh, of course, I think so. Uh, First of all, we need to understand that the U.S. is an empire, and it aggressively invaded Cuba and Puerto Rico and the Philippines, and it claims to be this moralistic society, a city on a hill, all this puritanical horse shit that the white Anglo British Americans love to get high on to justify their genocide of everyone else. And there's only two things in war. There's might is right. I do it because I can get away with it, and then there's we're doing it because we have a some kind of moral claim to do it. You know, if I steal your bike and you see me on the street riding the bicycle, and then you confront me and then beat me up and take your bicycle back, is that wrong in the moral sense? No, because you're taking back what is actually yours. So when Hitler evicts Poland out of Prussia, it doesn't matter how Poland got Prussia. The U.S. gave uh, Prussia to Poland. Hitler still had a legitimate basis to evict Poland out of Prussia. And you must use the phrase he evicted a foreign power out of Prussia, not that he invaded, because right, the term invasion sounds or is claims it's illegitimate. And so the United States, when it invaded Spanish possessions under a hoax event, which is now understood to be just another false flag, the blowing up of the Maine, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, um, and then of course the uh, invited bombing of Pearl Harbor. This delegitimizes the U.S. claim that they were the victims, right? So you can only claim a moral basis for your actions if you're being victimized. And Japan actually had the moral claim in this because the U.S. was saying, we're not going to allow you to have oil, we're going to starve you to death. Uh, and yet, what was Japan doing wrong? Nothing that the U.S. government wasn't doing wrong in the first place. So it had no basis to project some kind of horseshit morality on the Japanese when they weren't following it themselves. Just a couple of decades earlier. Well, actually, 4 decades earlier. So I would say yes. The U.S. government and the American people uh, don't have a claim to claim victory over Japan. Might is right is not enough. A legitimate victory requires a moral element, and the moral element is not there. And so you could say realistically, that Japan won World War II, and Japan is in the right no matter what. Just like you would say a rape victim is in the right, even if the rapist gets away with it and he can parade around town in his Trump vehicle and have a big Trump parade, the victim is still right. And this is the conscience of the public must gravitate towards forfeiting the World War I and World War II, and the Spanish American War, because that's really the only way to make America great again involves moral greatness as well. And so you can't have moral greatness if you don't do great moral actions. And of course, if you want to just say, well, we got it, it's power, we're going to show our dominance because well, then this also involves humiliation, right? That Donald Trump has revealed a number of things about our society that power is the name of the game. Morality comes out of what the power says, and when the power cuts off the funding to colleges, universities, corporations, and churches, these moralistic institutions change their tune overnight. And so there is no morality in the United States. It's all a hoax. There, and of course, the Christians who claim to be Christians yet support bombing Gaza out into a shell and so forth. They're completely, what are they really? They don't have any moral claims. They can't claim morality. It's all about power. And so, okay, power, but power requires humiliation, right? Donald Trump shows that if power, there's a Latin masculinity, not an appropriate masculinity. It's a deformed masculinity, which I write about at whatisgerman.com. I have an essay on that. And if you believe in masculinity as dominance, then it correspondingly requires humiliation. And the Romans apparently they liked being the penetrator, and so they didn't care what they were penetrating, whether it was you know a man, a woman, or an animal, as long as they were on top. And the bottom was the humiliated object. And so that's the kind of society that Trump is introducing. That you have the dominant guy and then the humiliated guy. And this is what he did in the White House with him and Zelensky. And the white nationalists want their God Emperor, and most of these white nationalists are basically part of English. They're English homosexuals. I called them bathhouse nationalists a long time ago, and because America is basically a homosexualized society, it's inevitable that it's going to get a dominant character to give it what it wants, which is humiliation. It wants dominance and humiliation at the same time. And so this is basically, America is a dysphoric society. It doesn't know its ethnicity. It has no ethnicity, and therefore it can't have masculinity. And this is why masculinity has so many deformities in America. Teenagers taking steroids is a crazy thing to see, and there's other defects but one of these problems is it goes back to the nature of this country as an empire and the nature of the country as a deformed society. Because if you're serving ethnos, that conditions what you're doing. Certain things are off limits when you serve ethnos. So in a healthy society, I champion the Volksayer view, which is you want the healthy mind in the healthy body, and the healthy man in the healthy Volk. And so the idea of dominance and humiliation, there's no room for humiliation. So you wouldn't have that kind of masculinity in a genuine German society. And but you do see it in the Latin world and the Anglo world, and they love hazing. They love other humiliation rituals, which we see all the time in the media. And this Epstein thing is partly humiliation of Trump, because he's a bottom boy to the British Empire as well. So yes, the August is only a few days from now, and it's worth discussing. Finally, after 80 years, let's just forfeit World War II. Let's show that we're a moral country, right? And that power should not be rewarded when it's absolutely destructive. And of course, Japan and Germany, they didn't die out. They are still the number 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 largest economies in the world. And pound for pound, they're the strongest economies in the world, given that, China has 1 billion people, the U.S. has 300 million, but the intrinsic strength, economic strength of the Germans and the Japanese is so great that they're basically 1 and 2, more or less. And just bombing them made them stronger. It brought out the best in them. It brought out their character, and they were able to rebuild quickly. And that Marshall Plan horseshit was just an excuse to claim, oh, we needed the Marshall Plan so that Europe wouldn't go communist. No, the United States was funding mass murder communism, so it's completely illegitimate from that end as well. But I won't talk about the European side of World War II. Clearly, the U.S. government provoked Japan into bombing Pearl Harbor, and Roosevelt knew this was coming, wanted it to happen, and he sent his best ships out to sea, and then the junk got bombed, and then he can claim, oh, we got hurt, and then we need to have a war. And so if you know, the funny thing is, the people who murdered people to take Japan or were killed taking Japan, they actually were killed by their own government, because their own government, the U.S. government, sent them into an illegitimate war. And illegitimate wars aren't something new in this country. But what's shocking is how stupid people are to keep falling for them and still join the military and still get screwed by this institution. So forfeiting the war would be a nice, beautiful lesson to young men to have big doubts, grave doubts about joining the U.S. military, no matter how pretty the uniform, no matter how great the pay is, no matter how much girls wag their tails over somebody in a uniform. All that is ridiculous. You want to really think about what you're doing. And when I was in, I graduated high school in 1990, and in '89 the Soviet Union collapsed, and I thought, boy, there's no chance, no reason to join the military, because it was such a large organization. They would probably keep the best people they wanted, and then it's just going to sort of peter out. But then, of course, George Bush and the British wanted to have that war on Saddam Hussein, and it was fishy from the beginning that there was this thing called the April Glaspie affair, and Saddam said, hey, George Bush, do you mind if I invade Kuwait? And Bush said, sure, we have no territorial interest in this. It's your fight alone. Go for it. And then Thatcher calls and tells, hey, Skull and Bones men, you work for us. America is our servant to fight our military. Don't go wobbly on Saddam. And so then we were there basically having a 30-year war on the Arabs, after we had a 30-year war on Asians, after we had a 30-year war on Germans, after we had a 30-year war on the Indians, even, 60, 80, 90-year war on the Indians. So it's the first step to rectify this is start talking about forfeiting World War II, start thinking about forfeiting the war on Japan, and think in terms of the difference, power and justice. Okay, that's the real thing. I better close this down since I have about a minute left before I have to turn it off. But forfeiting World War II is a good thing. It's the right thing. It's inevitably, the Soviet Union collapsed. What does that mean? It means that they basically forfeited World War II because Hitler was trying to destroy the Soviet Union, get rid of mass murder communism, get rid of this. And they basically admitted, yeah, you're right, Hitler, we suck, let's dissolve. And so they did. And so if they did that in 1939 or 1940, they could have saved themselves, whatever it is, 20 million soldiers, so they claim. So the truth, the justice won in the end, and it's going to win again once the U.S. government collapses, and it's already, it's despite the high sense of power, it's also getting weaker and weaker publicly. So a regime has to either become fully Stalinistic or break apart. The tension gets too great, and something will break. All right. Hopefully it's not us who will break. See you later.